The goal with this engine swap is to go 350 miles per hour at the Bonneville Salt Flats in August of this year. But before I do that, I'd really like to get a run in at El Mirage. El Mirage is a shorter, slower course, but you can't really test a land speed car without just going really fast, and I'd like to get one good test in before Bonneville. Unfortunately, I missed the first event of the year, but there is one more that I can make. With 4 weeks left until the event, we took the car to the dyno to get the engine tuned. And that's when everything started to go downhill. Last time we finished up the wiring, and after some basic tuning on the ECU, I got the engine to start and run. Next step, the dyno. I said you can't really test a land speed car without going fast, but you can test some things, and the dyno is a great way to test the engine and drivetrain. A dyno is just a big energy absorber that lets your engine and driveline pretend that it's accelerating down the road. We got the idle tuned and then tried to get some power runs in, but we ran into problems before we could even get in a full run. The first problem was oil dumping out of the engine bay. This is never good, but this time it wasn't that bad. The vent I had set up for the dry sump tank was in the wrong place, so oil was just making its way out the vent. With that fixed, we tried to get a full load dyno run, and that didn't work. The dyno was bucking around a lot, and the chain stretched significantly after only half of a run. We figured out pretty quickly that the sprocket was not exactly centered on the rear axle. This had been a problem before at Bonneville. Whenever we changed the sprocket, we could see that the bolts that hold the sprocket to the axle had bent. This eccentricity wasn't a problem at Bonneville on the smaller motor, but with the bigger engine and more power, it was. There are actually several things I don't like about this whole drivetrain situation. The main issue is the way the sprocket mounts to the axles. The axles are cut for a 35 spline Ford 9-inch rear end, a pretty common setup. My original solution for this was to make a splined clamp. I made this by just buying a spool and cutting it down. A spool is a drag racing part that goes in the rear end of a car that locks both of the axles together. It's cheaper to just buy one of these and cut it down than it is to find somebody who will broach new splines. I cut a slot down the side and wrapped it with an aluminum sleeve with bolts through the aluminum that acted as a clamp to clamp the splines together. This sleeve is what the sprocket attached to. There were two problems with this design. One is that you have to tighten the bolts for the sprocket before you clamp down the sleeve since the axle is in the way. This means that these sprocket bolts are kind of weirdly loaded. The other problem is that the sprocket is bolted into the aluminum. I have stainless steel helicoils in the sleeve, but the threads start immediately, so the torque transfer is through the threads. Ideally, the clamping from the torqued down bolts would create enough friction so there's no bending force in the bolts, but with the fact that you have to torque the sprocket bolts before the clamp and the level of engine torque going into it, it didn't work out that way. The result is that the bolts would bend, the threads would get messed up, and the sprockets would be eccentric. Then you get the jumping and chain stretch on the dyno, and it's all bad. I've also never liked the chain adjustment. This is based on how motorcycle chains are adjusted, or at least the way they were 50 years ago. Old bikes have a slot in the axle, and then you run a screw in the back of a thing that carries the axle backward in that slot. My adjustment is the same, except that it's on the front of the swing arm where that mounts to the car. This all works pretty good on a 70s motorcycle with 40 horsepower. It's not great for a 250 horsepower land speed car, and I'm trying to triple my horsepower, so it's gotta go. The original idea was to have full suspension, which I've completely gone away from, mostly because it's just a pain in the ass. Part of this is my fault because the swing arm wasn't well designed for suspension because the pivot bearings were too small. I've since fixed this by eliminating the bearings altogether and just hammering a solid aluminum shaft in, which works great as long as you lock out the suspension. Anyway, a lot of this is bad, and I've wanted to change it for a while, so with 4 weeks left until the race, it seemed like a good time to completely redesign and remake the whole drivetrain. The first thing I considered was using OEM hubs. Modern hubs are all assembled and pressed together packages of spindle, bearings, seals, and mounts. It'd be really cool if I could just get one that was ready to go. The Ford Mustang has the correct bolt pattern. The Tesla Model 3 also has the same bolt pattern as my wheels, and I know people who worked on those. So I asked what would happen if I spun a Tesla hub to 3 times the speed it would ever see on a Model 3, and I was told that the gut feeling says that it would be fine, which is good enough for me. The problem with this design is that I need a spline shaft going into the center of the hub and across to the other hub, and also that shaft needs to carry the sprocket somehow. So in 3 weeks, I need to find someone to spline a 2-foot shaft and broach a sprocket carrier, and also I probably need to have carrier bearings to hold the sprocket adapter so I don't bend the whole shaft forward, and all of this seems challenging to do in a short time frame. So I changed direction and went with this. This uses the axles and bearings that I already have. I like those parts. They're good. Dutchman made the axles for me a while ago after a couple of companies scoffed at making such short axles, so shout out to Dutchman. All I needed was a way to hold these in place and a way to connect them together, and a way to attach the sprocket. Let's start with the first one. This is what I came up with. It's a CNC part that bolts to the frame in 6 places and has a hole for a bearing press in the middle. The 6 bolt holes are actually slots so I can adjust the chain tension. The whole thing doesn't need to go up and down with suspension, but it does need to slide back and forth to adjust chain tension. I'm calling these parts uprights. To adjust chain tension, I added 4 blocks on the front, top and bottom on each side. These will have a bolt going through with a jam nut on the rear. Rotating this bolt will push the whole assembly rearward and tension the chain. The bearings will be pressed in, but I also want to have some features to make sure they don't walk from side to side for some unknown reason. So I added in some plates on the sides. These shouldn't see any load, but at 300 miles per hour, I don't want to take a chance. I did also have to space off the left side upright from the frame a little bit to clear the sprocket. The nice thing about this is that I can keep my same brake rotor mounting off of the axle and just add a part that comes off of the upright to grab it, so I don't need to change any of my brake mounting. This does require a frame modification, which I don't love. I can't connect this to the frame tube down here because it will interfere with the wheel. This is not the end of the world, but it's always tough to accurately locate welded tubes, and I don't really have a great node to tie the front into, so the load path isn't great on the bottom. So I added a shear plate that connects the new tube to the old tube, which should help transmit any load to that part of the frame. The uprights are not symmetric top to bottom. I set these up so you can run them like this for my nominal 1 inch of ground clearance, or you can flip over the entire assembly and mount it upside down for an extra ½ inch of ground clearance in the rear. Also, this is the only way it will fit the largest sprocket I have, which I need for dyno tuning. So we have the axles, we have the bearings, and everything is attached to the car. Now we have to get the chain attached somehow. This was the big problem on the last assembly, getting the sprocket attached in a way that was strong and also concentric. Last time I had a spool and an aluminum sprocket mount with a sprocket attached to that. The new design is completely different. You see I have a spool and an aluminum sprocket mount with a sprocket attached to that. Okay, so it's mostly similar, but the load transfer is a lot different. Instead of cutting down the spool, I'm keeping the whole thing, and I'm making an adapter that mounts the sprocket to the spool where the ring gear normally bolts. This will be made in 3 pieces, 3 separate 3/4 inch thick aluminum plates. The sprocket bolts to the outer plate with bolts that have shoulders through the sprocket and the aluminum. The inner plate bolts to the spool in the same way. The outer and inner bolts also go through this middle plate, holding it all together. The sprocket bolts are 1 size larger than last time, and also no torque is carried through the threads, so this should be significantly stronger. I also have the inner diameter of the adapter and the sprocket just barely bigger than the spool, so we have a guaranteed concentricity with the spool. I made these adapter plates on my CNC router since they were pretty basic. The router will do aluminum, but it takes forever, so it's great for things like this and terrible for anything more complex. Like I said, I kept the axles and the bearings, but I did take them apart to clean them up and paint them. I did the simple CNC stuff on my router, but the big stuff was done by Send Cut Send. It all came out great, except that in the mad rush to get the parts ordered, I accidentally uploaded a previous revision of the uprights. All I changed was the position of the small locating holes, but now that meant that my laser cut parts weren't lining up with my uprights, which was unfortunate. I didn't have time to get new laser cut parts, so I went back to the CNC router. I milled out a pocket in some scrap aluminum to hold all the pieces, and then I taped them in the pocket, and one by one used the CNC to mill out the correct holes. We bolted on the spacer plates and then test fit the CNC parts using some printed plastic parts to keep them centered. Everything looked pretty good. After that, we pressed the bearings into the uprights with the help of the oven and a cat. We put the axles in the freezer, and when the uprights were hot and the axles were cold, the axles just pretty much dropped right in. There was one issue. I had bought new wheel studs and I forgot to screw them into the axles before we assembled them. Fortunately, there was just enough space in the pocket to get them in there. With the axles pressed in, we did a test fit on the car to check spacing. The 2 axles are supposed to be just barely not touching each other, and we nailed that. Look at that tiny, tiny gap. I bolted together the sprocket and the adapter to the spool, and it looks super stout. Definitely better than the last one. I did have to go in with a grinder and knock off the very ends of the spline so the axle would fit in all the way, and it came together pretty much perfect. After I had sent off my parts to CNC, I decided to add one more. I want a bearing holding onto this side of the spool to keep it centered. So I drew up something and sent it off to Send Cut Send, but since I sent it late, it wouldn't arrive in time for the dyno, so I cut a simplified one out on my CNC. There is a needle bearing inside that rides on the spool. Unfortunately, the spool was made for a bearing press fit, so I had to very carefully lathe down about 0.02 of an inch off of it. And with it all back together, it was ready to go with 1 week left. So we took it to the dyno. And that's when things continued to go downhill. With the car bolted to the hub dynos, everything was working better, but not a lot better. We got several runs in and we tuned the car up to about half throttle, but as we got more power, the chain started stretching a lot. Not nearly as quickly as the last time, but once we got into putting down actual power, it was stretching noticeably every time. We had to keep adjusting the chain tension, and eventually we had to replace the chain. It stretched more than an entire link. We also had what sounded like clutch slipping. I have a boost compensating clutch, which adds clutch pressure with boost pressure, but there seems to be a delay or something. Since the car is geared so high, we were tuning in first gear. Even with the largest sprocket I could get on the rear, we couldn't get it to start off in a higher gear. After all the chain stretching, we tried it again, and the clutch just kind of stopped working. So we took the cover off to find a very hot clutch. I don't think we can continue tuning with these hub dynos. We need a roller dyno. We need something that's not so abusive to the powertrain and something with some inertia. So I gotta find a roller dyno around here and someone who can tune this thing and get a new clutch, and that's probably not gonna happen in the 3 days before the next El Mirage race. So we took the car home to figure out what went wrong. The first thing we found was the clutch pressure plate was broken. Not great, but not catastrophic, and it didn't seem like that had caused any other damage. But we didn't get much further in that without encountering more problems. Bits of metal were scattered around inside the clutch, and we couldn't get the clutch plates out. They're supposed to just slide out, but they were stuck in there. So we got out the slide hammer, which helped, but also scattered some more bits of metal. Further in, we encountered more metal in what appeared to be the outer teeth of a clutch plate with no clutch plate. And then a few clutch plates that were just melted together. One of the friction plates was mostly gone. It was still in the engine, it was just in several thousand pieces of glitter. I think the engine is probably fine. I have screens in the pan, screens before the high pressure pump, and of course the filter. But I still need to take off some of the covers and look inside. Not entirely sure how to clean out all the glitter, and I don't really care right now. I will find a new clutch and a new dyno, and I will get everything sorted out, but not right now. I am taking a break from this car for at least a couple of weeks. I have been too focused on it for too long, and I haven't done important things like making these videos which kind of pay for the project. Much like my clutch, I am a little burnt out. This is an increasingly expensive project, and there's so much that I haven't even talked about, like my dry sump tank that has so many slots and holes in it. We will make it to Bonneville, probably. Hit that subscribe button to find out, and hit that Patreon button if you want to support the channel and the build. Either way, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.